I am Jim Colleton, and live from our virtual studios around the world. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on June 16th, 2021. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you in our chat rooms. Right, there's a link on our live page that'll take you to YouTube. Sign in with your Google account and join us in chat. Love to have your questions and comments there during the program. If you're listening after the fact, and thousands of you do, so that's okay as well. If you have some questions, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to subscribe to this on any podcast app. You can just search Gallup Webcasts. Or if you're there on YouTube, you can subscribe and get notified whenever we go live or produce a new program. Dana Williams, Elise Ellman, and Micah Lawrence are my guests today. Together, they start a Clubhouse group, CliftonStrengths, called Dominate Your Day. They meet 4 times weekly, and they reach a global audience on topics of strengths, engagement, and well-being, and I'm sure a few others as well. Dana, Elise, Micah, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Well, thank you for having us. We're thrilled to be here today. It's great.
Yeah, thank you. This is wonderful.
Yeah, Jim, this is a dream of mine. I'm excited.
Well, it's actually the honor is all mine. It's so great to connect with you, and I have been in and out of your Clubhouse group. We're going to talk about what that is here in just a second. But let's start with a little bit of a focus on you, Dana. I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your top 5 and kind of what you're doing now. Do that in a minute or two, and let's let folks know who you are.
Sure. I'm Dana Williams, and I have launched in December. I launched Dana Williams Co. and the Strengths Journal. And my top strengths are ideation, strategic, futuristic, maximizer, and individualization. So, and I just am excited to talk about how we started Clubhouse and why we did it.
Great. Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And Elise, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. I recently launched my own consulting and coaching business called The Next Act Consulting. I have a background in corporate HR and also hospitality. My top 5 strengths are ideation, strategic, command, self-assurance, and activator. Coincidentally, all of Dana's top 5 are in my top 10. So we all tend to share the same strengths. You'll hear that come through, but I'm extremely happy to be here. Thanks, Jim, for the invitation. And we're super excited to talk about Clubhouse.
Yeah, great to have you. And I'm glad, by the way, thank you. You reached out to me and we had this conversation.
I did.
And I was like, we should just talk about this on Called to Coach.
And I was like, sign us up. He's like, do you think Dana and Micah would be into that? I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not even going to call them. Just say yes.
Is water wet?
She told us later. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I signed you guys up. Exactly.
Yeah, so great. Well, this is going to be scary because we're all a bunch of talkers. So, we're gonna have to, Micah, let's not leave you out. Micah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. So I started my own coaching business in March of this year. So I call myself a corporate management dropout. I felt like there was a need for me to leverage my strengths better and play to my strengths. And my top 5 are communication, maximizer, woo, positivity, and activators. So this was, it was just a better fit for me to leave the corporate world. It was something that I wanted to do for many years that I finally pulled the trigger on. And it's been a wild ride, and I wouldn't give it up for anything. So happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Micah, thanks for coming. You and I are a lot alike. Elise and Dana,
yeah,
a lot
we
alike.
have a lot of the same top 10
boys against girls in this.
Well, you actually got the dress code a little bit.
Yeah, we did. We planned the blue.
Called in advance. I did those kinds of things. Dana, let's start with you a little bit about Clubhouse. Why? So first of all, tell me what this Clubhouse thing is, and then what drew you to it.
Yeah. So Clubhouse, for those who haven't been, is a social platform, but it's all audio based. And I had heard about it through another mastermind group I was with. There was a lot of marketing leaders, and they had started getting on and talking about it. And I thought, well, let me go just see what this is. And I loved it. I got on and I started exploring it. And what I found was that this was in January. So actual Clubhouse was started last March. Right when COVID was open is when they launched. There's a great podcast on how I built this, on how Clubhouse was created. If anybody wants to go listen to that, just came out in May. But what I learned is that it was a great networking opportunity. It was a great opportunity to build community, but you had to be very strategic in what rooms you went in. And so I spent the whole month of January just popping in and out of rooms and learning as much as I could. And about that same time, Kelly Bacon, who I had worked with for 8 years at Southwest as our Gallup rep, had told me about Elise and then later about Micah. And I had just simultaneously had calls with each of them. And Elise and I had met a little bit earlier than Micah and I had. And when I knew that I wanted to do this Clubhouse thing, I kind of opened it up to our Southwest coaches that had retired, as well as Elisa and Micah. And it was exciting because Kristen, who's not on this call, is also with us. And she was a former Southwest Airlines employee and now getting her master's. And so she's been a big part of this as well. And I think she's in the chat.
She's
today,
in the chat.
So,
yeah.
Yay.
Hey,
so,
Kristen.
yeah. And then H is a wonderful contribution to our team that Elise brought along. And H kind of specializes in high performance teams. And so it evolved the first couple of weeks. And Elise and I were kind of out there. We didn't even have a Clubhouse. We just had to go and just do a room. You had to earn your way to get a Clubhouse. And they wouldn't give you a Clubhouse unless you had been on a certain amount of times. So I knew that, and I was strategically trying to do that. And I grew up in the real estate business with my husband, so I knew that we had to go in there and get our territory, kind of like the land rush, right? And it was like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know what it's going to become, but I better grab some land while I can. And that's kind of how it all started. And then I just opened it up to these folks and said, do you want to come join me? So the first couple of days were kind of funny, and we just tested. Our motto has been test and learn. I don't know, Elisa, we were doing that for a couple of weeks, and then we got Micah, and then Kristen started joining us, and then H started joining us.
Well, those first few days, Dana, I think you'll remember I think it was the first or maybe the second day we went on, and at the time we didn't have our own room. And so we had to go in, and you kind of went under someone else's room, and Dana had found like how to make money rich quick, something.
Yeah, it was some kind of entrepreneur's millionaire room or something.
Millionaire room. And we went on and nobody was there but us. And we were looking, not looking at its audio, obviously, but I remember staring at the phone at our pictures. We're the only ones in the room. And Dana, I guess, realized that you have to tell the moderator of that bigger room that you're using their room. And then all of a sudden it was like the person who was the moderator had flipped a switch on, and we had like 50 people file in the room. And we were both like, so let's talk about strengths. I mean,
I never heard this story. This is great.
I kind of forgot about that happening. It was very traumatizing. No.
Seriously.
But it was shocking because we went from really just talking to the two of us to the room just like pop, 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 pop. And it just filled up. And then Dana was able to secure our own room after that. And then it's a little, and at the time, I remember Dana and I would call each other after every Clubhouse on the phone and be like, what did you think? Did we do that good? Should we do it differently? Should we, and for probably the first 2 weeks, that's what it was like. It was like, we would go on, we kind of designed the days of the week based on the first letter. So motivation Monday, wellness Wednesday. What do we do on Thursday? So we really, Dana, it was a fun time. It was. And
it was kind of reminding me, and I was thinking back, I thought, why did I want to do this? And why did I get excited about it? And I think it's coming from Southwest Airlines and being at one point just an underdog. And just going in and creating awareness, stimulating trial, encouraging repeat business was kind of our motto back in the day. And I think that's what we've been doing is getting out there and encouraging people to come in, having a safe place for people to come in and share. But the other thing we've been very focused on is our niche and and who our audience is. It's not for everybody. And I think when you look at Clubhouse, there's so many different rooms, and you can waste a lot of time in there. You can go in rooms that aren't right, but we wanted to be very productive, very structured in a way, but in a fun way. And so it just evolved over, I don't think we got our first calendar up until probably March. and then or late March, early May, early April, but started planning ahead, started inviting speakers. Some wonderful people in our chat today that have been in the room and have been with us all the way through, and have contributed. We've even gotten to use some of our coaches from Gallup that have come up and spoke, and we have one next Thursday speaking. So it's been fun to we just call it test and learn. And I think with anything, even when you get on Clubhouse, they say this is a beta. And that's what Elise and I had to say to each other. This is a beta. We're just testing and learning right now. And that's kind of how that was the beginning of it. And then I would lean on my marketing friends from my other group, say, what are y'all doing? What are you learning? This is what we're learning. And we would kind of bounce things back and forth.
We're going to talk about that learning, what you've learned in this here in just a second. Mike, I want to ask you. So we've probably enticed a few people like, okay, because I've got listeners have never been to Clubhouse before. And they're like, okay, you've convinced me. Micah, how, like today, if I wanted to join this, how do I do it? And what kind of at least you alluded to it a second ago, but walk me through a little bit of your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. So we have, what's interesting about the beta that is Clubhouse is that they wanted it to be by invitation only. So you can't actually just go download Clubhouse and jump on and make an account like a lot of apps. They wanted to test it out and grow it organically. I'm sure there was some strategy behind some virality that they wanted to feel exclusive and get people invited and feel welcome or special joining the community. And so in order to join Clubhouse, I believe this is still true. At some point, we shouldn't need to be invited, but you need to find somebody who's already on Clubhouse and they will text you an invitation. And through that invitation, you can join, download the app, and then start listening to phone calls. A lot of what, as I've shared with people who have asked me when I post about it on social media, what's Clubhouse and why would I do that? There's this, it's kind of an interesting take on a social media platform in that you join these rooms that some are scheduled, some are spontaneous. And in the course of 30-minute, 60-minute, sometimes 90 minutes and 120-minute phone calls, you have an audio-only experience listening to and potentially speaking about a topic that people share in common or that they want to talk about. And sometimes you'll find rooms that are as small as 10 people, and sometimes you'll see rooms that have 15,000 people. And a lot of times there are celebrities that have joined some of the Clubhouse rooms because they really care about a topic, and they will be brought up to stage and you can hear impromptu a celebrity or somebody that you follow or someone that you care about that you would never have an opportunity to listen to on the fly like that. You get an intimate conversation, an impromptu conversation to hear their thoughts and sometimes even interact with somebody that you would never have had an opportunity to interact with. So it's never recorded. I know some people are figuring out ways, or they're just recording the audio for their Clubhouse so that people can access it later. But that was kind of one of the appeals at the beginning, is that you come and you listen, and now is your chance. So it's live. If you don't do it now, you miss out on that conversation. And I think that's why people get sucked into it. They'll be doing one thing 1 minute. Their phone will say, hey, there's this conversation going with Elise, Dana, and Micah, and you're going to love it. And so they can't resist. They join, they listen. It's fun.
It really is. I'm sorry. It really is old school radio.
It is.
In the sense that gets kind of one and done and it's gone. Elise, okay, Micah, you said like you got to get an invite. There's got to be is there an efficient way? Have you guys figured out an efficient way? So if I have a listener and it's Android and iPhone now, it was started just with the iPhone, and Android has recently come on. Have you guys figured out an efficient way to get folks invited if they don't have an invite, to get that done?
There's all kinds of, every week they have a Clubhouse kind of call for everyone to go in and hear all the new technology and what's going on. I think it's every Sunday. Anyway, one of the latest things, and I'll try to listen to that when I can and keep up, but they've evolved the app since we got on in January, February, but there is a way you can forward to your constituency or your community from your phone and invite them in, which they didn't have in the beginning. And there continues to be more and more updates to the app. So I would encourage anybody that gets on the app first and they've never been on it, there's like daily rooms you go on to learn how to do Clubhouse, learn how to navigate it, learn how to forward. And then you earn like invites every time you're on. So each of us have a pod of invites that we can send. So it's never, I don't think we lack too much. I remember in the early days, we were sending them out to the Gallup Facebook group.
We use your Facebook group in the very beginning. We used your Facebook group, and we did get a lot of requests at that time. And we were juggling. It was Kristen and Dana and I who we each probably had maybe 5 or 6 invites a day. They keep bringing, the more people you invite, the more invites you get. And we wound up getting a lot of requests on like Messenger through that. I would say in recent weeks, I don't see any requests anymore. I think everybody has found a way to get on Clubhouse.
They know somebody.
It doesn't feel as kind of coveted as, and I love I can use air quotes. So if you hear me on Clubhouse, I am almost constantly using air quotes, and you can actually see my air quotes now. This makes me happy.
This is different. I think we're taking for granted that most of even our listeners that are on the chat that are used to listening to us,
they don't see us.
We've seen each other in person, but we're taking for granted the fact that this may be the first time that they're actually seeing us.
Well, and Micah, we've never seen each other.
We've never
live
been together.
We've
That's
never
true.
been
We've never been in the same room.
We've seen each other on Teams and Zoom. So there's a whole machine behind this, right?
Yeah.
So when Dana, she asked, not me specifically, let me just make that clear. She asked 15 people, does anybody want to do this? I was the only one who was like, I'll do it because I'm high in activator. And it's probably why Micah said yes too. And we were not as organized. And Kristen, who's in our chat, has been instrumental in helping us get organized. And so now we went from going 5 days a week and realizing that Fridays is not really a hot day for us. We don't get a lot of our regulars. It was just, summer was definitely an impact on Friday. So we went down. First, though, we changed our times. We used to be 8 a.m. Central every day. And then for our West Coast people, we went from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, staying at that 8 a.m. Central, to Tuesday and Thursday to 11 Central. Then we eliminated Friday. So when Dana talks about test and learn, like no kidding.
She means
and
it.
Then, we eliminated Friday. Kristen put together this phenomenal calendar for us. And so we plan a month out. So we were struggling in the very beginning going, we should find some guest speakers. And then we were running around trying to find guest speakers and saying like, when H, who's our 4th coach, joined us, by that time, I had called him. We were friends for many years in Chicago, and I know about his business, and he's phenomenal. I knew he'd be a great addition to the team. I literally was like, "Can you do it in 2 days?" There was no forethought, there was no planning. Kristen put together the calendar for us, and then she also built our resource page. I don't know, Dana, if you want to talk about our resource page.
We have so I got this tip from my marketing folks, but there was not a place when somebody was speaking of where to point them. So if Elise was speaking on engagement, we usually would talk about different models, and we have to take them to the internet, right? You were telling them to Google the Q12. And so now we have everything on dominateyourday.club. And that was the key too, was to kind of get in there and own your real estate, but also own your name.club. And so with Kristen's help, she created the landing page and has been updating it. So every time we have a speaker, every time we have new information, books we share, we put it there so that our listeners can easily go and get all the resources. And we probably have people even on this call from all over the world. And so they're coming in at different times. And so we want to be able to have the information and have them be able to reach us. Did you have a question, Jim, on that?
I did, and Carolyn's asked twice, so I think it's probably pretty important.
Yeah.
So if you're listening right now, or if you're listening to the podcast after the fact, or watching us on YouTube, what's the most efficient way if I don't have an invite and I need one? What's the most efficient way to get an invite?
If you just send somebody, any of us who have an invite, a direct message through any of our platforms, we would just need your phone number, and then we can text you an invite through Clubhouse.
Is that contact information on Dominate Your
Day.club?
Okay, good. So Dominate Your Day,
go in there
all one
and pick
word.
Your person. Yeah.
DominateYourDay.club, CLUB. Don't put .com, but .club on that.
That's right.
And your contact information is there. They can reach out to you guys.
Our bios are there. So our business names are there. there, our background, our specialties. And so if you want to learn more about us, if you want to access some of the resources we refer to, Kristen is great about almost immediately. We've been on Clubhouse and she's texted, it's up, while we're talking about an article or while we're talking about a resource. Yeah. And so it is a great page, but if you want to get an invite, we all have them. And we, usually when someone asks all of us, we are sort of sending all of you'll get 3 because we can't help ourselves, but like
we love you. Yes.
Yeah.
Right on. Good. Okay. Yeah. So that gets folks connected. I want to spend some time talking about the why of this. Like, what has it done for you? Carolyn also asked a great question. She says, how does spending time on Clubhouse help you grow your business? Or is the purpose to function as a mastermind, or does it serve a purpose as a mastermind group? I kind of want to say, what have you learned through this? So let's go reverse order. Micah, I'm going to start with you above me and say, what's this done for you? I mean, what's the payoff? What's the benefit for you?
Yeah. So when I saw that question in there too, and Carolyn, I was sitting here shaking my head like, I don't know. We'll see. Come back in 2 or 3 months and I'll let you know. But I think that's kind of the why when Dana suggested this to 15 people and said, why don't you join Clubhouse with me and we'll see what happens. Elise was the only one that did it. It's not proven yet. And I think that's kind of why it's something that we wanted to get on the ground floor. We wanted to start an experiment with something while there was an opportunity to do so and be there early on in case it became something that we can leverage to grow our business. Like, I know that there have been situations where each of us has been contacted by people where they're interested in learning about Dana's Strengths Journal or the services that we offer. And there hasn't been a lot of business generation from it yet, but I think that's part of what we're trusting in the process, is that we're building expertise, we're building a reputation. People will come to us as experts on Clubhouse or on strengths, especially as the community grows. So we're kind of trusting that this will become something that we can build our business on or can create and generate business for us over time. But I can't say that it's happened yet.
Yeah.
Elise?
I have some additional parts that happened for me personally. And so I had spent my career in the corporate world and COVID happened, and my background is hospitality. And as I think we all know, hospitality got hit pretty hard. So my entire division was minimized to maybe from a 40 something to like 2 people. So I found myself, at a pretty late age, even though my lighting is really good, saying, what do I want to be when I grow up? Right. And so I was in that place when Dana asked the question, who wants to do Clubhouse? And what I found was I was able to kind of target what I wanted to do with my practice through learning through Clubhouse. And so when I started, I'm a certified coach. I'm almost completed my ACC from ICF, which is another certification. I had taken a company from a very low Q12 engagement score to a Gallup Great Workplace Award winner 3 years in a row. I had done all these great things and I headed up and implemented really big global strategic projects. And I was like, which one of those things do I want to do? Because everybody, when you talk about starting your own business, they're like, pick a lane. And I was like, I don't know what lane I want to do everything. And it's hard to market yourself that way. And Clubhouse, we actually kind of had to pick a lane, right? Because, Micah does what he does. Dana does what she does. H does what he does. And I found myself leaning into the Q12 engagement. And so in Clubhouse, for those of you in our audience today who listen, you'll know that I'm the engagement person. I love managing the Q12 program. I love implementing projects around it. I love implementing it into companies that haven't done it before. I was a people leader for many, many, many years. So it's something that's dear to my heart. But it took the Clubhouse experience for me to kind of pick a lane. And when I prioritized that, it really helped me identify what my business was going to look like. And now that I've done that, I do believe that I'm positioned as the subject matter expert with the help of the other coaches in engagement in the Q12 program. Now I've started leading conversations around well-being at work and how that aligns with engagement based on the new book, which is wonderful, by the way. And I feel like it gave me a sense of vision and purpose that I didn't have. So on a personal note, I would say that whether I make money off, obviously I hope to make money, let's be really clear, but whether that comes to fruition through Clubhouse or other channels, I feel like the experience itself helped me to grow. And I would say, as someone who's got communication somewhere in 6 through 10, I think it was number 10, talking through this and being part of a really smart group of people who have similar strengths than I do, it was just invaluable.
Yeah.
Dana? Yeah.
Dana. So I'm in I come from the marketing background, but also started the whole coaching movement at Southwest. So I have a passion for both. And I saw this as a great opportunity. Yes, I think the money will come, but this is about building brand right now and building community. And I think I'm one of those people, I don't like to go in those rooms where everybody's trying to sell me something all the time. And we've talked about that as mods too, that we don't want to be those people that feel like every time we go in the room, oh my gosh, somebody's selling something. Yes, we all have products and services we're selling, but we want to get to know these folks as coaches, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, and bring tools and services to them. And it says that in our bio about what we stand for and what we do every day. So it's it was very clear that I wanted to bring value. And the team of experts we have every week is amazing. And being able to come in a room where you can feel safe and you can get up and talk and people care about you. And we've been building relationships. We've just learned recently that we can get some analytics on our room. It's very tricky. You kind of have to pay a lot of money, or you can do a test and get the analytics during the room. So we like to look at that every so often. And we just started looking at that. I guess it was last week. But we have a high stickiness. In other words, the average person goes in a Clubhouse room every 11 minutes. With our room, they're there most of the time. They're not going in and out, which is great. Yeah, which is great. Yeah. And we don't hold our rooms. I think Micah alluded to, these rooms can go on for days or hours or 15,000. Yeah, I mean, we have an average probably of 15 in there at a time. We might be as high as 25 sometimes, but we'd like to get a little bigger. We'd like to get more people engaged, but we're still growing. We're still in that early phase.
Yeah, I was serious when I said check back in 6 months, because I think that part of what we're doing is we're establishing opportunity. We're creating relationships. And if you ask me in 6 months how we monetized from Clubhouse, I could probably trace back to relationships that were built because we made this Clubhouse room. And it's not to say, obviously we do, like we said, we want to monetize Clubhouse for our businesses. But if at the end of the day, in 6 months, we monetized a little and we gained some connection and made relationships a little, we benefit either way. So it definitely has been an experiment, but it's all good. And in 6 months, maybe we'll have more to share with you about the data that led to monetizing the platform.
Yeah. I like John Craig's comment. So it was such a treat. So Jim, can I tell your Clubhouse story?
Sure.
So Jim had come into our room several times, and Micah was just taunting him, like, Jim, do you want to come up to stage and comment? Jim, do you have an opinion about that? Jim, and what would Gallup say? And he never came up. Like, he would just
wouldn't take the bait.
No, never. And we were really and we would talk about it. How do you get Jim on stage? Like, how do you do this? And then one day, I don't know what I said. I don't know if it got you charged up to say something. You either agreed or disagreed. I don't remember what it was, but all of a sudden you were on stage when we had an engagement conversation. And I think it was like Q11 or Q10 on the Q12 model. And then we decided, okay, he's here. We're not going to let him leave. Like, now we're just going to keep asking him questions. So he keeps chatting away on our stage. And for those of you who haven't been on Clubhouse, when you enter a room, you're in the audience and you don't have the ability to speak. You have to raise your hand, and then a moderator has to bring you up to stage, which is basically the top portion of the screen. And that's when you get to unmic yourself and you get to speak freely, and we have the power to mute you and kick you off stage too, just so you know that, because Mike is really good at that. We'll get back to that in a second. So after that day, when Jim finally came up on stage and engaged with us live, I sent him a quick thank you note on Messenger, and I basically just, thanks for coming up and thanks for being a part of our conversation today. If there's ever anything I can do with you, like anything, you just let me know. And he's like, you want to Zoom? And I was
Right
like,
now?
yes. And I
Yeah,
looked
you
in the mirror and I
activators.
was like, okay, like at least I'm usually looking like I just got out of a 15-mile bike ride. So I was like, okay, I can Zoom. Yes. And that's how we kind of got to today. And Jim, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but we were, yes, it was a moment of, we have gotten someplace that Jim wants us on his show. That was like a moment for all of us. And it was really exciting.
Well, you guys were doing a great job, and you didn't
Thank
need
you.
me. Like I didn't. I talk enough. Like this is where I influence, right? And I didn't want to be another. I didn't want to jump in there and be another voice in an area. You guys were already doing a great job. It was fun to just listen. Like I enjoyed. I was on my way down to Texas one time, and I got the notification on my phone, and I said, "Oh, we got to listen to Dominate Your Day." And so I made my wife listen to it, and and then at the end, I kind of jumped in at the end for a quick comment on something, and it was just really fun. I didn't need to be a part of it. I know you guys wanted me to jump in, but I was like, no, I'm good. You're doing a great job. So you don't need me. Just keep doing what you're doing. So super great.
And I think what Elise did is really important. So for those of you getting on Clubhouse, when you meet people, you meet them on Clubhouse, but then it's after the Clubhouse experience that we really want to encourage you to go out and meet and connect with people outside of that. And all of us have done that, I know, with different people that have come in the room and just watching and just serving and extending the relationship. It goes beyond Clubhouse. It's just a point of entry.
You got to let the technology, what I appreciate about you guys, you got to let the technology get out of the way. It's not about Clubhouse. It's about your relationships that you're building.
Right.
Clubhouse is just the mechanism to get this done. Alfred had asked me earlier a question about other social platforms like Twitter. Like all of a sudden, Clubhouse caused everybody to create these Clubhouse-like channels. So I think Instagram has something, Twitter's got something. They all kind of did this. But we and I got, man, I just from a podcasting side of things, I got a million questions about which one do I use, and I'm like, the one you can create the right relationships in, right?
Absolutely.
Because this is still a relationship game, right? You're still it worked because Elise actually took the initiative to send me an email. Right. To thank me for coming. And that initiated a conversation. I don't want anybody to miss the point. Even here, like what we do on Called to Coach, it's still about relationships. Elise contacted me. Why would I not say, you want to talk like that? I do that a lot with people because it's about relationships. Right. And I think you guys are doing that. You're doing it really, really, really well. Any stories? Can you give me I'm actually looking for the one. It's easy to find the goofballs that come on because goofballs happen, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to give anybody any reason to come on and do a Baba Booey to your show, right? Right. What are some elements or some moments of impact? How have you? Because certainly you've had those already.
I think we even had one this morning. We had a girl from Scotland that was talking about engagement, and Elise was talking about that I have the tools necessary to do my job best, and my leader helps me with that. And she was saying that before COVID, she had to share a phone, like a mobile phone, with her partner at work, not at home, at work. And it took COVID for her to get the right tools and for her to be able to come up and share that story. And she was just so appreciative to talk about it. And I think just getting in those, there's one story like every day. That was just fresh because it was this morning. But I love the fact that she called in from Scotland. I don't know if she was a strengths person yet, but she was intrigued by the discussion. And it's building those kind of relationships that help. I don't know, Micah and Elise, you probably have, that one was fresh on my mind from this morning, but I don't know.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people who, and I love this, they kind of find us. Some of them may or may not have, just because, the title of, we try to and Dana and Kristen do a great job of this. We try to be really creative about the title so it attracts someone who's just on Clubhouse looking for something to listen into. And so sometimes we get people who don't really know about CliftonStrengths. And then sometimes they might have their top 5. There's been a ton of people who have now taken the assessment and done their strengths. There's a lot of people who started with us who only knew their top 5 and now have, through the conversations we know, have purchased the full 34. I think what Micah does on Tuesday is definitely one of our most lively strengths coaches conversations. And what's next Tuesday, Micah?
Restorative.
So every week, Micah, and I was following along of his choices, and then I got it totally wrong. I think your first 5 were the most common top 5.
That's right.
And then he went rogue, and I was like, intellection? How did that get up there, or whatever?
Well, I started looking for interesting pairs. Like one week we did communication, the next week we did intellection, because I think there's a relationship there that's interesting to contrast and to talk about. So I started looking for pairs. We've got restorative next week, and then I think we already did maximizer. So I was thinking that's a really interesting pair, like restorative and maximizer. So I was looking for things that we could group together that would be kind of a continuation of the conversation week to week.
Yeah. And it's such a lively conversation on Tuesdays because you get a bunch of, I think we average around 20 people, 15 to 20 people, depending on the day. Those are some of our liveliest conversations. You get a whole bunch of strengths coaches and you ask them to talk about strengths. It's nonstop and it's wonderful because the perspectives are different. And then, Micah does a lot of individual and team coaching. I have a big corporate background. So our perspectives of the same strength based on who we coached can look very different. And I think that's the most interesting. It's like, you can read up on everything Gallup says about every strength, which is, we all did that. We all got certified and we did our homework and we learned. But then, I'm coaching people in a corporate environment. So I'm looking at how their strengths impact how they manage other people, where Micah or Dana may be looking at it from a different lens. And so it makes the conversations really very interesting, more so than just reading the description.
Yeah, and like you said, because we're a room full of mostly coaches, most of the people that are listening are experts in their own right. And so when we have these conversations like on Tuesdays where we're talking about one specific strength and what that might look like from one person to another, we'll get people on stage that have done coaching or have that strength themselves. They either have done coaching with somebody who has that strength or they have it themselves, and we'll learn insights that are new to us. So even as experts and certified coaches, we'll get to the end of the day and realize, like, I never thought about this strength in that way. And we're better equipped to have those conversations as coaches leaving the room. So I think that might be why we have the stickiness that Dana mentioned before. We see a lot of the same people in our rooms every day. And so we truly have built this community where we feel like we know one another and we look forward to certain people raising their hand and knowing that they have a comment. We're like, we're going to bring this person on stage. It's like, welcome back. It's good to see you. So it's a fun community experience. Yeah, I get to do this. You wouldn't have seen that if we were on Clubhouse. That kind of implies that there are people that we don't want to bring on stage, but we don't have to talk about that. But it is there are a lot of people that we look forward to seeing every day because we know they have value to add to, and we get to be kind of the platform for that. If we weren't doing this, other people wouldn't hear from those strengths coaches either.
I think some of the gaps we're feeling too, I know one of the needs I had as an entrepreneur was to get back into community. So, we had all the strengths coaches we met with on a regular basis, and we shared insights and tools and experiences. But when you're on your own, it's, how do you put that together? How do you create that need? And this has become a great group to do that. It's also been a good focus group. As a marketer, I'm looking at it as, oh my gosh, the trend right now is, what are we going to do about hybrid back to work? That comes up every day. And we have different leaders, entrepreneurs, coaches talk about what's going on in their workplace. And it's just so fascinating. So I think that is another piece of this that's been really interesting as we test and learn.
Dana, I see you as the Clubhouse boss, capital B-O-S-S. Like you like quietly, as I've listened to what you've done, you're very you're actually appropriately quiet and letting other people. It'd be easy to to
Oh.
not this to this become dominate the conversation, not dominate your day, but dominate. Just we're right that the possibility of this is happening, and I've watched you be like a real quiet leader in this, and you bring value from organization and consistency, and like we're just going to do this thing. Can you talk a little bit about what you've learned in that role of just helping make this thing happen? Because listen, these things don't happen by accident, right?
No.
You have to intentionally do them, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, and I want to thank you for having us, because when I was thinking about it today, I hadn't stopped. We just move, and we don't stop and reflect on, my goodness, what have we done? And how can we make this better? And I think the key things that I've learned is, and I learned this in my leadership role at Southwest, but I continue and I see leadership from Micah and Elise and H and Kristen too, but we all bring it in a different way based on our strengths. But I think collaboration is king. And I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're out there trying to do it on your own, find a partner. Don't try to do things on your own. And there's so much more value in collaborating. And we actually have a meeting every Tuesday before we go on live at 11 and talk about what's working, what's not working, what do we need, and coach each other. We've had some great moments in there, helping each other be better, or sharing moments where we think, well, we could improve in this area. So it reminds me of teamwork so much. So being clear on your strategy, being collaborative, having a place that has good content. So I'm very particular about that. And I know these guys are too. And so we've challenged each other to think about our titles of each day. I think I saw something in the chat about, do you have different content? Yes. Every day we have different content, but it's organized. It's not chaotic like it was in the beginning. But the content is king. And so having a content that's outcome focused. So making sure that people will want to go in there because they'll see that title. And if it doesn't sound good, they're not going to come in.
Right.
Elise, talk a little bit about Dana's leadership in this, just from your perspective, and what does that mean or has meant to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Dana's like our glue, and you might notice if you're paying attention that Dana is the only one that doesn't have a day. So I have a day, it's on engagement. Micah has a day, it's a strength spotlight. H has a day, and Dana's the only one who doesn't have that. And so she opens up the room, she closes the room. You'll hear us very Dana will always open up the room when we see that we're getting to the end of the hour. We'll all consistently, and we've never discussed this, turned around to Dana and said, okay, Dana, take it away, and so she'll close us out. She'll give a preview of the weeks to come. She's extremely generous, helping us promote ourselves and our business and our specialties. She is, we've had conversations offline. She's truly been just a pleasure for me to meet and get to know. And maybe someday we'll meet in person. That would be amazing. We'll go have lunch or something. Yeah. But
I know this company that can get you there, Dana.
You think?
On a little airplane.
Yeah.
And see, but I would say I'm very fortunate. I feel very blessed that she's that we've been partnered. Kelly Bacon deserves a lot of credit. I should send her a bottle of wine or something. But
together.
Yeah, she really did. And it's been great because Dana has been really, the only word I can think of is just extremely generous to make sure that we all look great. And it's not just the organization, but she'll take the time to highlight what we bring to the table on Clubhouse. And that's extremely generous. And I know I appreciate that. I think I can speak for Mike and H as well when they say the same, they would say the same thing. I saw in the chat, do you guys mind if I switch gears just a little bit? Someone asked something about sort of more specifics about what we learned. When Dana talks about, we have this pre-meeting on Tuesdays where we all get together, the topics are not only what we want to do, what do we want to talk about and what are the things. We had to have a conversation about how we prep our speakers. And I think you guys will remember this week pretty well. We decided that we wanted to be more consistent, to make sure that everyone who came as a guest speaker on our Clubhouse, whatever day it was, whoever was usually leading or being the host for that day, because sometimes when we bring our own guests in, we host them, that they're set up for success. No, I mean, Jim, you do this really well. You met with us beforehand. We went through all of our technical challenges. You prepped us with some questions, and and so we wanted to make sure that we were giving everyone an opportunity to be successful. And Kristen, who's kind of our anchor, our other glue, she went ahead and actually created a document for us that we can give to a speaker ahead of time so they know what to expect, and then talking points for us so that we can make sure that we're giving everyone as much of an opportunity to be successful as our guest as possible. And when you think about that, in the beginning, we would have never thought of having to do that.
Yeah, but we learned the hard way.
We did learn the hard way. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure everybody has the opportunity for success. And this is volunteer. No, we don't pay anybody to be a guest on our show. This is completely volunteer.
I'm out.
Okay, well, Jim is a speaker tomorrow, so I'm like, Kristen, hurry up, send him that guide. So, Jim is going to be.
Jim doesn't tomorrow. Need that. He's the exception.
I haven't gotten that.
For the live listeners, if you're listening to this on the recorded version, we've already done it. Although you're going to get an opportunity. I asked if I could just show up monthly to kind of give a Gallup update, because there's a lot of questions you guys get that it's really my job to answer them. So it's just like, hey, let's set up a reoccurring monthly. Can we do this on a Thursday? Would this work out? And so you guys were generous enough to give me a monthly slot, which was super cool to kind of jump in. So thanks for doing that.
We are thrilled.
If you're listening live, you can join us tomorrow. What time are we doing that tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Thursday. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we're on 11 a.m. Central.
11 Central.
And then Mondays and Tuesdays, we're 8 a.m. Central. So I did see a question in the chat about doing something later in the afternoon. We've talked about that. We moved to 11 a.m. Central on Tuesdays and Thursdays, hoping we would get another crowd, and we still get the same crowd. We're getting a few more, but if there's other times we should look at, we will definitely look at that. I think it was this one about Asia.
And we at Gallup, I have moved to an 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Central schedule to just to do, just for that reason, to make sure we're getting Australia and Asia included. It's hard. I did a call last night at 8 and one this morning at 8. We're doing some feedback sessions, and so it's just hard. It takes a lot of work. What's really interesting is people will generally wake up early for these kinds of things. I'll get up at 5. But asking someone to come on at 9 o'clock at night is literally like pulling teeth. And now that's my prime time. I've done a prime time. I've done an 8 p.m. Central show for the last 10 years. And so that works great for me. But it's kind of overcoming that shift. And maybe you guys need some partnership from Asia. In other words, I was
just thinking that. Because they could come in and use our clubhouse and be, and that would be great. So if there's somebody interested,
DominateYourDay.club.
Come on, DominateYourDay.club.
Let us know. That's worth mentioning. If you're a coach and you want to do something within sort of the umbrella of Dominate Your Day, it's all about CliftonStrengths and the offshoots of that, like engagement and teams. And we have a clubhouse that's established. If you contact any one of us through DominateYourDay.club, then we did that first day with Dana and I, that I told the story that all of a sudden a whole bunch of people came. We went under someone else's umbrella, under their clubhouse. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to get started. If you want to do a room in Clubhouse, we invite you to use Dominate Your Day. We love the exposure.
Worked hard. We worked hard to get all the systems there. And I think one thing that was interesting you were talking about is our Tuesday meeting is we actually got to apply what H has been teaching with forming, performing. And actually norming was creating our guides for our speakers. And that came out, he said, we've got to come up with our own guide. We've got to come up. And I thought, we're living what we're learning. Mm-hmm. And so that was another moment just with us individually as a team that happened. So that was.
Well, and I think the fact that you the fact that you stumbled into somebody else's room to see what that experience was like, I would add that to Lisa's question that Elise was answering before. Lisa's been a regular in our room, but just asking what we've learned from this, there is some art to being a moderator. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of buttons and flashing lights, and practicing even just being a guest in a room or a guest moderator in a room, joining somebody else's room to see what that experience is like first will help you realize that paying attention while you're talking, paying attention for mics going off and on mute, for people raising their hands, there are settings about how you want people to raise their hands. You can turn it off, or you can open it up to everybody, or you can open it up to just people that you follow. There are so many little nuances about your interface when you're a moderator. Experiencing that early on will help prepare you to do it well when you're ready to open your own room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then just listening for learning. Listening is hard, right? We all have, as coaches, we're supposed to be really good listeners, but this is really good practice of listening because all you have is the auditory brain. You can't, there's no, like here we get to see each other. We get to see our emotions, but when it's just auditory, when it's auditory, that's it. And so you really have to listen really well. You can't be like, working on and then listening. If you're a moderator, you have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like this morning, as part of, we were talking about question 2 on the Q12. So I have the tools and materials to do my job. I was describing a chart that you could put on the wall that will help employees with this particular question. And when you're describing it, so for those of you who were on this morning, this is what I look like. So there's one column, another column, another, because like it's all audio, no one can see you. And you have to really get good at the visualization explanation of something. And so that's one of the reasons why DominateYourDay.club was done, because we were all, in the very beginning, H had a quadrant. And so he's like, okay, everybody draw a line horizontally and draw a line, because you lose the visual, and it's very difficult to do something that you've probably done a million times in your career because you've had like a PowerPoint or a handout, and now you're only doing audio and you're having to like, there's an old exercise where 2 people draw the same thing and through a description and it's completely different. It's like that, right? That's kind of what it's like.
If it makes you feel better, Elise, you're not the only one. When I'm talking, it's like my hands are everywhere and I'm air quoting like you all the time.
Oh my gosh. Look at me use my hands now. Could you imagine what I'm like on a Clubhouse? I'm all over the place.
Well, you can't tell, by the way. One of the things I've noticed is I've been listening in and listening to the medium. Like I'm learning from you guys about this medium, which is super cool. I don't prefer it because I can't see people, and I need to see you guys. Like I need to read body language. I need to see what your eyes are telling me. Like I'm reading all those things as we're doing it. But what I noticed is the conversations on Clubhouse are a lot slower because you can't see this. You can't take the visual cues. You're way more deliberative in the conversation because people can't see each other. And I actually, there are moments where that's soothing. Like it doesn't, 4 of us in a room, we're always interrupting each other. We've done that here. Like, it's kind of chaos. We all want to share some things. But what I've noticed, and because maybe even too, because you've broken it up by topic, by day, and there's a speaker, you're also very thoughtful about who's speaking and when they're speaking and how they're speaking. And I actually feel like, because it's audio only, I actually think the content's at times is a little bit better because you're being forced into a discipline of just audio. While some people see that as a weakness, I'm kind of seeing it as a strength.
You can't fake value when you only have audio to work with.
You're kind of, it kind of puts you in a gate. Like it kind of puts you in, and you got to go down that. You guys got to go down and do the best job that you can with what's there. And I think I've just appreciated the content. I think that sometimes the depth of the content is better. And so great job on just let me encourage you.
Thanks for that feedback
on that. Yeah, we have just a few minutes left. I told you guys this would go super fast, right?
It
always does. Wait, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. This is kind of your opportunity as we look ahead. And Dana, I'm going to wrap with you because you always wrap the Clubhouse show. So I'm going to wrap with you. So Micah, we'll start with you on this one. Okay. Let's think about, as you think about the future, what are your hopes? Like, if you could kind of say, this is what as I'm looking out in the future, this is what I'm hoping for both for me and for the group on Clubhouse. What in a minute, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, we had a conversation about this in our Tuesday meeting as a team last week or a couple weeks ago. And we were kind of comparing where we are today, where we want to go with what we're seeing in Clubhouse elsewhere. And when we talked about some of these rooms that have 1,000 people in it, that's where a lot of people will come on stage to self-promote. They see a big audience and they just want to talk about themselves, and it's internally focused. And what I love about the community that we have now is that we are focused on value, we're focused on one another, and we're focused on connection. And I feel like as we talked about our goal of size, we've wanted to maybe be more deliberate than you'd think. We don't want to just grow and grow and grow to be 1,000 or 10,000 people joining every day. We want to have a community of strengths enthusiasts, not all coaches, but people who truly get value from our discussions that we're still comfortable bringing on stage, where more connections are being made and everybody's feeling the value of the room the same that they do now, as intimate as it is. So I see us being halfway there. If we can just grow the size of the community a little bit, not to be something enormous, but to be something stronger, that's my vision. That's where I'd love to see this go.
Well, and you may make a step in that direction. Kathy had said she's been, mystified by Clubhouse, and this maybe pushed her over the edge to say,
Good.
yeah, no. So Micah, that your goal may be realized in Kathy's comment. Elise, what about you?
Okay, I'll try to be quick because I know we're almost out of time. There's sort of a two-part answer I have. One is, I just read Adele's comment. Adele joins us almost daily, I think, and she contributes a lot and very well. And, she kind of said it best, that the room has had an impact on her as a coach and has had an impact on her as individually. And I think that's I think what we were all going for as coaches. I can tell you, I went from a very interactive environment to a very isolated environment during COVID. And if we're able to help coaches, not only advance their knowledge around strengths, advance their network based on strengths, but also just feel like they have that community and be able to share and interact with others, I think that would be an amazing outcome. On a personal note, I'm really excited to have started my own business. I feel like engagement Q12 is kind of my swim lane. And if this gets me exposure and people who are coaches who work with companies who need that kind of help, or if companies just want to come directly to me, I feel like this could be a great networking opportunity for me. And I hope that grows. But like I said, if we're just able to give some people a sense of community around strengths, then I feel like our job is done. Our Payless job is done. No.
Yeah. No, great. Dana, bring us home.
Yeah. So of course,
like she always does.
I have futuristic. So you're just getting me all charged up here. So I visualize, first of all, this is the decade of opportunity, right? And with social media changing so much, to be able to get in and build community right now where we are and grow that, I think would be my vision in the next 6 months. And that I have seen coaching clients that I've had that have never done their strengths before come and join us just to practice and learn. And I've seen leaders, HR leaders from other organizations come in and listen to us and say, hey, I want to, I'm a leader, but I need to hear this. I don't have a group at my organization that can come and do this every day. And I know you guys are there for me. So being consistent. And Adele, thank you for your kind words. Kristen, thank you for making things happen behind the scenes. She's been
connecting everybody.
Yeah.
She's sending invites.
Keeping us all organized as usual.
But I think any platform is not going to last forever. There's so many things going on with Facebook and just all the different, and there's other people trying to replicate what this is. LinkedIn's trying to do something right now. And I say, just don't get overwhelmed. Just come where your people are, and let's just keep this together. And and don't try to do everything. But personal branding right now is huge, and this is a great opportunity to come in and use your voice, get with a safe group of people, we're not going to let anybody in the room that shouldn't be in there talking. And we have a great cop in Micah. He's our cop.
He's our bouncer.
Bouncer.
So, but just understanding what you stand for in Clubhouse, I think, is important, and what your focus is.
I know this guy who said soar with your strengths, and
You know that guy.
you're all doing that, right? And so,
Oh,
however, for those who are listening, however that works out for you in this, if you've got some messages, maybe Clubhouse, that kind of style isn't right for you, but maybe it's in writing or communication or one-on-one or whatever.
absolutely.
Gravitate towards those areas that you enjoy and that you're good at. And I found out during the pandemic, I am really good at these quick one-on-one calls with people. I mean, at least that was what I did with you. It was practicing what I'd learned during the pandemic, is have a thought, let's talk, right? That's kind of so
Activator.
in one-on-one is just where that's kind of been my jam, right? That's I just kind of like, let's do more, because it's working. Like, I'm seeing things happen in that. And it can't be let's talk 2 weeks from now. It's let's talk right now, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's been super great. Well, I want to thank all three of you for coming on. Remember, dominateyourday.club if you want to join them there. I'm going to be over
please
there.
connect with us.
We want to. You're going to be there tomorrow.
No.
You're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah,
the
I'm going to
third
be hanging
Thursday of every month. You're going to be with us.
Hang out with you guys tomorrow, and
Yeah.
we're going to do a little bit of post show for some practical questions. So if you can stay around for 15 or 20 minutes after this, you have to be listening live. So recorded folks, come out and join us live from time to time. We'll stay around for some post show. That'll work for you guys. Can you stay 15 minutes or so? Okay,
absolutely.
If you're listening live and you can stay around, this is the time to kind of ask your really detailed, specific questions in the chat room, and we'll address those. So with that, I'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available now in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths, and you can log in if you've taken the Clifton Strengths assessment. If you haven't, there's all kinds of instructions on how to get it done, and we'd love to have you do that as well. If you need coaching, master coaching, or want to become a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach, you can do that as well. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. In fact, that email address is good for any questions that you have. If you can't remember anything else, or you can't get to dominateyourday.club, send us an email there. I'll make sure you get there and you get taken care of. Follow us and keep up with all the webcasts that are going on. We do this a lot here too. So Clubhouse folks, if you came over, we do this all the time. Head out to gallup.eventbrite.com. I'm not saying we're more fun, but maybe we are. And Gallup.eventbrite.com can get you there as well. I don't have high competition, so I'm just saying that.
You're as fun. We're all as fun.
We're all
That's
as
right.
fun, equally as fun.
There
We
you
want
go.
to thank you for joining us today. If you found this helpful, we want to share it. We want to in regular Call to Coach listeners, give it a try. Head out to Clubhouse and give it a try. We'll stay around for some post show. For those that have to go or listening as a podcast, with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.